Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Vivian and you're welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be drafting a pattern for this beautiful peplum top. Okay, so with that said, let's go straight into the video. So the fabric I'm working with today, it's just 1 meter of fabric. So I'm going to be trying to make this fabric work. So that's why I'm going to be drafting the pattern on the fabric. So this way I will know how to cut the fabric in order to get every pieces I need for the peplum top. Okay, so I'm starting by folding the fabric in half. Okay, just like that. I'm going to take that and fold it over again. Okay, so this will give me the front and the back piece. So the side with a double fold is going to be the center front and the center back, and the single fold side will be for the side of the peplum. So once you have your fabric fold like this, the next step, you want to take your measuring tape and measure out your waist measurement. So for me, my waist measurement is 28 divided by 4. That gives me 7 inch because I fold the fabric into 4. So that gives me 7 inches. So right now I'm just going ahead to mark 4.5 inch all the way around. So next I'm going to take my marker and connect the line. So the blue marker wasn't showing well on the fabric, so I decided to switch to the brighter color one. So I'm just going ahead to draw out the line, and next I'm going to go ahead and add in the seam allowance, and I'm using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So after adding the seam allowance, I went ahead and measured the line, and I have exactly 7 inches. So without the seam allowance on the side, so I decided to add the seam allowance after measuring out the full length of the peplum, but we're gonna get to that. But first, right now, I'm going ahead to measure 15.5 inch. So the full length of the peplum is 15 inches. So the 1/2 inch will be for the hemming. So like I said earlier, my waist measurement divided by 4 gives me 7 inches. That's exactly what I have on the original waistline, but I need the seam allowance on the fabric. So right here, I'm going ahead to mark 1/2 inch down from the original line. So I'm going ahead to measure it, and the total come out to be 8 inches. So the extra 1 inch would be for the seam allowance and also the zipper allowance. Okay, so once you have your waist measurement marked out and the full length of the peplum, you have to go back in and measure the waist to ensure that you have the exact measurement plus your seam allowance. So you want to make sure to do that before going ahead to cut out the fabric. Okay, so once that is done, the next step is to cut the fabric open. So you want to cut it on the single fold side. So this will give you the front and the back piece. So before you separate the peplum, you want to go ahead and mark the center front and the center back. So by the time you open it up like this, you will have a half circle shape. So you have 2 pieces, one for the back and one for the front. Okay, so moving on to the bodice block right here, the width of the block is my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for the zipper and the seam allowance. So right here, I'm going ahead to mark 4 inch from the center front. This is my nipple to nipple measurement. 8 inch divided by 2, that gives me 4 inch. So that's why I went ahead and mark that out. So from the bottom of the bodice block, I'm going ahead to mark 1 inch out of the way. So from this line right here, I'm going to go ahead and measure the full length of the front. So right now I'm going ahead to mark 16.5 for the length of the top, which is the front part of the top. So next, at that 16.5 mark, I'm gonna draw a line that will be the shoulder line. Okay, so from the shoulder line, I'm gonna mark 9.5 inch down, so that will be my bust point. So for my bust point, I'm gonna take the measuring tape and mark 1.5 inch upward. So this line I'm marking right now will be for the chest line, which is where the armhole is going to start. So next I'm going to take my ruler and connect the line. Okay, so to add my dot point, I'm going ahead to measure 1 inch from my bust line downward. So I'm going to place a mark right there. So that's where the waist dot's going to stop. So moving on to the next step, right now I'm going ahead to measure out my shoulder measurement. So my shoulder measurement is 14 inches divided by 2, that gives me 7 inches. So I'm just going ahead to mark that from the center front. And also I'm going to place a mark on the chest line. Also marking 7 inches from the center front. Right there. So next I'm going to connect that using the ruler. Okay, so moving on to the neck, I'm using a neck width of 2.5. You can make it 3 inches if you want, but for me, I'm using a neck width of 2.5. Okay, and the depth also I'm going to be using 2.5. Although I'm going to be changing the style of the neck later on, but for now I'm just going ahead to mark the neck depth of 2.5. So for the neck width and the neck depth, if you're not going to be opening up the front part of the top, or if you're not doing a V-line shape, you need to make it a bit wider so that way you can fit it through your head. So instead of 2.5 inch, you can make it 3 inch or 3.5. So okay, so moving on to the next step, I'm going ahead to mark my armhole depth, and I'm using 7 inch for the armhole depth. That gives me 1 inch for the shoulder slope. So right now, I'm just going ahead to connect that line to the neck. So to find the middle of the armhole, I'm going ahead to divide the 7 inch into 2. So now gives me 3.5. So I'm just going ahead to place a mark right there. So next I'm going to go ahead and connect all 3 points. So first I'm going to connect the bottom part using the ruler, using a curve ruler. Okay, so before going ahead to add in your seam allowance to the armhole and the shoulder point, you want to take your measuring tape and remeasure your shoulder length. So right here, I'm going ahead to take my measurement to make sure I have the exact measurement, which is 7 inch. So I'm going to mark that. So by marking that, by tinting it down a little bit, that kind of remove 1/2 inch from the top. So depending on your measurement, you might have less or more. So again, right here, I'm going ahead to adjust the armhole, making sure to make a straight line or a neat line. Again, I'm taking the measuring tape and placing it down to make sure I have the right measurement. As you can see right here, I have the exact measurement, which is 7 inch. Okay, so next I'm gonna go ahead and add my 1/2 inch seam allowance on the armhole. Again, I'm not going to be adding seam allowance to the shoulder slope because I'm going to be adding that to the back. Okay, so moving on to the bottom part of the top, I'm going ahead to mark 1.5 inch for the waist dot. So next I'm going to take that and connect that to the top line, to the top point. So you can use 1 inch for the waist dot or 1.5, even 2 inch if that's what you prefer. But for me, I'm only using 1.5 inch for the waist dot. Okay, so after marking out the waist dot, so next I'm going ahead to add the remaining measurement for my waist measurement. So again, my waist measurement is 28 divided by 4. That gives me 7 plus 1 inch for the zipper and the seam allowance. That gives me 8. So since I've already marked 4 inch from the center front, so next right now I'm going ahead to mark the remaining 4 inch on the side. So next, I'm going to go ahead and connect that line, the waistline, to the armhole. So moving on to the back piece of the bodice, I'm already went ahead and marked out the 1 inch from the bottom part. So from that line, I'm going to be marking 15.5 inch for the back length. So the front is 16.5, the back is 15.5. So you want to go ahead to mark out your own measurements. So the reason why I marked out 1 inch from the bottom part of the top is because if I need to make any extra adjustments, I have extra fabric on the bottom to work with. So if I don't need to make any adjustments, I'm going to be removing 1/2 inch from the 1 inch. So that will give me 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay. Okay, so to create the back neckline, I'm going ahead to mark 2.5 inch for the width. So from here, you can mark 1 inch down from the center back, or you can mark 1/2 inch down from the center back. That depends on you. So right here, I'm going ahead to mark 1/2 inch upward for the seam allowance. That this is for the back. So I'm supposed to mark 1 inch for the front and the back. So I forgot to do it at that very point, but I'm going to come back and add that to it. So I'm just connecting the line from the 1/2 inch mark I made to the center back. Okay, so that's for the back neck line. Again, I'm going ahead to measure it like, oh, should I add the 1.5 inch now, or should I come back and add it later? So it was a bit messed up, and plus the ink is just all over the place. So again, excuse the mess of the ink. Okay, so next I'm going ahead to mark 7 inch for the shoulder measurement. And also I'm going ahead to place a mark for the back waist dot. Okay, so moving on to the armhole, I'm going to go ahead and mark the 7 inch for the armhole depth. So I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch to this measurement. Reason being is because I removed 1/2 inch from the front shoulder slope, and also I didn't add seam allowance to the shoulder point. So I'm going to be adding the 1/2 inch I removed from the shoulder slope plus the 1/2 inch for seam allowance of the front plus 1/2 inch for the seam allowance for the back. That gives me a total of 1.5 inch. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and place that mark at the shoulder point right there. So at the neck point, I'm only going to be raising it by 1 inch. That is because I didn't add the 1/2 inch seam allowance to the front. So the 1/2 inch seam allowance for the back and the front, that gives me 1 inch. So that's what I marked on the neck point right there. Okay, so moving on to the next step, I'm going ahead to make the measurement for my bust. So my bust measurement is divided by 4, that gives me 9 inch, plus 1 inch for the seam allowance, that gives me a total of 10. So I just went ahead and place a mark right there. So next I'm going ahead to connect the shoulder length, the armhole line to the chest. So next I'm going to go ahead and create the curve for the armhole, for the back armhole. Okay, so next I'm going ahead to mark 1 inch for the dot, for the back waist dot. So for the front I use 1.5. So for the back I'm using 1 inch for the waist dot. Okay, so next I'm going ahead to add the remaining measurement for my waist. So again, my waist measurement is 28 divided by 4, that gives me 7, then 7 plus 1 inch for the seam allowance, that gives me a total of 8. So I just went ahead and marked that. So next I'm going ahead to connect that line to the armhole point. Okay, so for the back waist dot, I'm going to be measuring 1 inch up from the chest line. So for the front waist dot, I measure 1 inch down from the bust line. So before going ahead to cut out your fabric, you need to take the front bodice piece and place it on top of the back at the neckline, and also making at the shoulder, to make sure that you have the same measurement for the back shoulder and for the front shoulder point. Okay, so you can see right there, I'm just going ahead to mark my 1/2 inch seam allowance to the back. Okay, so for the back design, I'm going to be making a curved line starting from the bust line. You can make this a bit lower or a bit higher, that depends on your preference. Okay, so next I'm going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to this line right here, and also I'm going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to the armhole. Okay, so this is the back piece opened up. Okay, so right here I'm going ahead to cut to pin the piece I cut out of the center back piece to the mesh fabric, and I'm going to be tracing and cutting that, and also I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch seam allowance to the mesh fabric. So I don't have enough fabric to do a long sleeve, so I'm going ahead to make a short sleeve with the remaining fabric. Okay, so here are all the pieces laid out. So the front, the back, the peplum, and the short sleeve right there. So in the next video, or on the next video, I'm going to be showing you how to put all the pieces together. And also I'm going to be having a separate video for the front neck design. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And also, if you're new to my channel and you want to see more video from me, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. If you already subscribed to my channel, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for popping by today. And I'll see you all in my next one.